Hello, it's Friday, July 31st. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 16 of What's Happening in Myanmar, the show from the Frontier Myanmar podcast family. I'm your host, Nick Dunlop. This week in Myanmar, the National Unity Government fines villagers for sending children to regime schools, while the junta abducts vulnerable people for conscription. Rohingya in Malaysia face deportations, and Thailand targets a junta ally for human trafficking as the regime passes a death penalty law for cyber scammers. National Unity Government-aligned forces in Minjin Township, Sakang region, are finding parents who send their children to regime-run schools, reports Think Media. At a village meeting last Friday, resistance members reportedly forced parents to sign a pledge to withdraw their children from the schools, imposing fines starting at 500,000 kyats, $113 at the market rate, and increasing them to as much as 2 million. One resident said an argument broke out when a parent pointed out that the leader of a People's Defense Force was sending their own children to a regime-run school, leading to a resistance officer pulling a gun. One parent who tried to withdraw their children from a regime-run school was reportedly stopped by regime soldiers who said, "Politics have nothing to do with children's education." The Irrawaddy reports that Jo Sway, an MP from the military-aligned National Unity Party, criticized the regime's taxation of natural resources in Parliament on Wednesday, pointing out that it makes just 6% of total tax revenue. He questioned where the revenue from Myanmar's major resources has gone, as residents in Kachin State Putao Township report that gold mining is polluting their main water sources and destroying farmland. Deadly airstrikes continued in Rakhine State when a regime air raid on Tandwe town killed 11 10-year-old boy and injured several others on Friday, followed by another attack on nearby beach town of Napoli. In Sakaine's Kin U Township, a gyrocopter attack killed a woman and destroyed 5 paddy warehouses. And in Mandalay Region's Singu Township, a regime drone attack killed 4 civilians. According to the Conflict Monitor Armed Conflict Location and Event data, the military is now deploying between 2 and 5 jet fighters on a single target for repeated attacks that are proving deadlier to civilians. An airstrike on Saturday in Bago Region's Yadashi Township killed 8 civilians, including 3 children, and destroyed a village church. In Mandalay Region's Nyong-U Township, 6 gunmen shot dead a village tract administrator and 3 of his aides at a grocery store on Friday of last week. In the same township, an alleged regime informant was gunned down at his home, while another administrator was abducted by unknown armed men. A resident said the administrator was lucky they didn't shoot him off dead on the spot because of his alleged role in forced conscription and bribery. After more than 10 years of award-winning journalism, we at Frontier are fighting for our survival. The grants that once supported 2/3 of our operations are no longer available. Despite this, our journalists continue their difficult and dangerous work, but with decreasing resources. Please encourage friends and colleagues to join Frontier, so we can continue producing our trademark features, in-depth investigations, and on-the-ground reporting. By joining Frontier, you'll be supporting us to tell the stories that matter and to cut through the noise to reveal what's really happening in Myanmar. Please click the link in the podcast show notes to join us. Thank you. On Tuesday, Kidthit Media reported that junta soldiers in Naypyidaw's Takon Township abducted a 34-year-old man with a hearing disability, leaving his 7-year-old son alone. In Pathane Town, Irrawaddy region, police detained a 17-year-old boy from a hostel, despite the conscription law stipulating an age range of 18 to 35. A leaked internal memo from Ektila Township, dated July 13th, threatened local officials with serious punishment if they failed to meet their conscription quotas. In southern Shan State, the junta-aligned Pa'od National Organization demanded millions of kyats from villagers who refused to send their children to serve in the military, collecting over 110 million kyats in replacement money. On Tuesday, Malaysian authorities in Kuala Lumpur detained over 100 Rohingya asylum seekers, including women and children, who had gathered outside the UN Refugee Agency office to seek help after being evicted from their houses in Selangor State. They were released the next day after authorities checked their UNHCR cards. Rights groups report that at least 9 community-run schools for Rohingya children across Malaysia have been forced to close in recent months due to threats and harassment. One community activist told Reuters, "Children are so scared they're afraid to leave the house." On Thursday, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim announced a deal with the Myanmar regime to accept 5,000 Rohingya refugees back. The announcement came as Malaysia's foreign minister called the UNHCR a magnet for asylum seekers and questioned its presence in the country, even though Malaysia is not a signatory to the UN Refugee Convention and does not allow asylum seekers to work or study legally. According to the UN, there are nearly 200,000 Myanmar refugees in Malaysia, over 125,000 of whom are Rohingya. The Karen National Union today denied the junta's claim that it profits from cyber scams as a baseless accusation. The KNU says the regime is trying to deflect from its own allies, stating the scam compound in question, located south of Myanmar, was actually protected by the Chief of Staff of the regime-aligned Democratic Karen Benevolent Army. The Karen group alleges these online fraud operations are under the direct oversight of the DKBA's economic policy chief, and that superficial crackdowns are a deliberate attempt to destabilize Kayun's state by allowing the industry to spread. The European Union has announced new economic sanctions targeting 7 individuals and 3 companies responsible for human rights violations related to scam centers. Those sanctioned include 5 high-ranking DKBA officers and the Prince Holding Group, a company accused of building scam compounds in both Cambodia and Myanmar through a network of front companies. On Wednesday, the regime's new parliament passed its first law, prescribing the death penalty for anyone who uses violence, torture, or unlawful detention to force people into working in cyber scam centers, according to AFP. Life imprisonment is reserved for those running the operations. The move comes as scam syndicates at Kayun State are quietly relocating their operations deeper into the jungle to avoid intensifying crackdowns from Thai and United States authorities. On Thursday, Thailand's Department of Special Investigations issued an arrest warrant for Major Mokton, a leader of the Kayun State Border Guard Force, for his alleged involvement in transnational crime and human trafficking. The warrant follows a meeting between Thailand's Prime Minister and the FBI Director, who pledged closer cooperation to combat cyber scams along the Thai-Myanmar border. Meanwhile, the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, which expelled the Kokang BGF from Lao Kai town in late 2023, announced it was distributing housing complexes once used as scam centers to its members and the families of fallen soldiers. And that's the latest from Myanmar for this week. I'll be back next week to bring you a roundup of all the stories making the headlines on Friday, August the 7th.